I now have the honour of introducing our next very special speaker. This person has come to know the work of the Salvos very well, and he's here today to share his story. Can you please make welcome Owen?
Homelessness is something you hear about a lot. If you're in the city, you see it visibly on the streets. No one starts life planning to be homeless, but the statistics show that 170,000 Australians are homeless right now in this country. It's one of those things you never think will happen to you. I never thought it would happen to me, but it did, and it changed everything about my life. I was only 13 years old. Growing up, life was hard. I moved around a lot with my mother. Family life was not good. There was always drug and alcohol use at home. We moved around a lot, and I never really had a stable home until I was 11. And even then, it was in a rundown housing commission estate, in a rough area full of crime. After a huge fight with my mum, I found myself on the streets with nowhere to go and no one to turn to. I had nothing but the clothes on my back. I just left in a rush. I had no money in my pocket. In an instant, my life went from complicated to very frightening. You have never felt fear until you feel that feeling of nothingness, the feeling of being so lost even though you know where you are. I jumped off the station 3 stops later at Wollongong. Overwhelming thoughts cluttered my brain and I was thinking, jail would be easier than this situation. That night I had nowhere to go, so I slept at the train station. I had no idea what to do. I was still yet to grow a beard and learn how to shave, let alone learn how to survive on the streets. I hid in the disabled toilets and I locked it, and I slept on the cold floor. I did this for 3 months. But try sleeping in a toilet at a train station, constantly being woke up and kicked out by city rail workers, transit police, and police officers. Sick from the cold floor and nightmares I had almost every night. I tried to keep going to school, but having no access to shower and clean clothes meant I got bullied. With everything going on in my life, it was too much, so I stopped going. Some of the toughest months in my life were lived in that toilet to this day. Finally, I got sick of it. Something inside me had changed. I was a good kid. I mean, I had my problems, just like everybody else, but I knew in my heart I was good. But at this point in time, I wasn't so sure. I was angry all the time. I would curse and lash out at strangers. Tired of being constantly broke and sick from the cold nights, I tried drugs. At first, it was to escape reality and to drown out the misery and comatose myself to forget. But then I began to get addicted. The addiction grew higher daily, and not being on drugs was like the end of my world. I would feel horrible the next day, but I couldn't stop. I kept using drugs day after day to hide the pain. When I would finally try to face it, I was emotionally dead inside. The following months, I got worse, and I drifted further into the darkness. I was lost, alone, sleeping on park benches and sidewalks, wherever I could get any sort of rest. I was sick all the time, inside and out, going nowhere. I was desperate and turned to crime. It was the only thing I knew how to survive, how to eat, how to live. This lifestyle got me locked up in detention centres, more often than I'd like to admit. But so depressed, scared and alone, I didn't care. In fact, it felt safe. It was a free meal, a bed and a roof over my head. It was a paradise compared to living on the streets. Every time I would walk out healthy, drug-free and actually awake. But the pain would come flooding back. I still felt so alone and I didn't want to feel that misery, so I turned back to drugs and crime again. It was a vicious cycle which seemed like it would never end. After another year of this, I had completely lost hope. But then something magical happened. I was locked up again. But this time, there was light at the end of the tunnel, and that light was the Salvation Army. I got sent to a youth refuge run by the Salvos in the city. Little did I know, it would change my life forever. It was called Oasis. On my second day, I met Salvos officers Paul and Robin Moles. From that day, they have always been there for me, and they still are today, 15 years on from when I first walked through that door. They are more than Salvation Army workers to me. They're like my mother and father. They are my family. They literally love me back to life. The Salvos gave me everything I needed then: food in my belly, a bed to sleep in, a safe place to live. I went from feeling lost and scared to actually having hope. They also gave me the opportunity to discover my purpose in life. When I would walk the streets, I would always be listening to music. I was never without my hat, my headphones and my Discman. I love music, particularly Eminem and Tupac. Their music spoke to us because we could relate to their struggles. It felt like a part of us, so naturally we started doing what they did, writing our own raps, singing our own songs. Almost as if they could read our minds, the Salvos set up a music program. The first day I started that music program, my life changed. After walking through those doors, I sat down, and for the first time I could put my thoughts to paper. I wrote a verse for a rap song that day and I recorded it at the Salvos. When the producer hit play on that track, something inside me changed. Instantly I could finally see the light for the first time in years. The energy that was building inside me was immense. I knew from that point on that I was not destined to live a street life. I went from being a hostile and aggressive person with no direction to finally having a dream and having hope. As I stood there with the Salvos, I couldn't stop smiling. It almost brought a tear to my eye. Because of the Salvos, I found my purpose. That day, I made a vow to myself to be somebody, to give hope to others like the Salvos did to me. Please bring your attention to the screen and see what life was like for me.
I don't know, I didn't really have that good of a childhood. I spent like the beginning of my childhood watching my mum get bashed, and I used to get bashed too by my stepdad, not even my real dad. And I never met my real dad. I spent my time with my older brother, mostly. He told me everything, but when I was 12, he got locked up. He got locked up for 15 years. And yeah, my sister went missing for a little while, my older sister.
And since then, my life has changed so much. In 2017, I toured with the Salvation Army, creating homeless awareness for the power of music in schools around New South Wales, performing to 6,000 students across the state. Today, I run a small promotions and events company in partnership with the Salvation Army, where I get to mentor those who are homeless and give them hope through the power of music. In addition to this, I'm also releasing my own album, and I'm working on another album with my Oasis peers. Also, I will be making a song for the documentary that Ian mentioned to you, the new one. So if you see the rolling credits, you'll see my song on there. Fresh out of Sydney Film School, I am also working on my own film scripts and film projects. And today I have permanent housing. And I am very proud to say that I am also a Salvation Army employee, working to help others in the community. No matter where I go or what I do, the Salvos are always there to guide me and support me on my journey. They are my family and they saved my life. We need the Salvation Army, and for the Salvos to continue to do what they do, they need you. There are too many out there who are still struggling, who have no hope. The streets are chaotic and dangerous. I think of my friends, the ones who didn't make it. Kemma, who died from a drug overdose. Chris, who fell from a building and died from impact. The street lifestyle is destroying our youth and cutting lives short. But you can help the Salvos change that today. You can help save more lives like mine, because every single life is worth saving and worth your help. I would be in jail, on the streets or dead if it wasn't for the Salvation Army. Because of the Salvos, I can live my life to the fullest, and I have hope for the future.